Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or over in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard.
Okay, welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It's November 14th, 2023, and it's episode 43. A lot of threes in there. Well, there's only two. Anyway, so we are glad you're with us this week. Just so you know, and we're going to tell you again at the end of the show, we are taking next week off, but there will be a special Thanksgiving upload, and it's going to have, we've got a bunch of friends that have all come together and say, and talk about what they're thankful for. We've got some people that I didn't think would respond that responded. So, and we still have another week to go before I put it all together. So, and plus we've got something thrice that Richard has for us. So
I won't do what I did in the promo. If you want to know what I did in the promo, you have to go look our promo up on Instagram.
That's right.
So there. What is our address on Instagram? I forget.
Oh my goodness. Instagram is instagram.com/stayoffmylawnpodcast. Or you can go to YouTube. I always put it on YouTube also. It's youtube.com/@stayoffmylawn. So there you go.
You're gonna find out about my thrice cooked turkey. I'm sorry, but it is. I cannot believe all the things that happened all at the same time.
We went a little long on the promo, but it's well worth it. It's a little bit of a hoot. So anyway,
we're having fun as usual, folks. If we're not laughing about stuff, life with all the stuff that's going on nowadays, why not just laugh at things? It's if you want to just be pissed off all the time, that's your business. We choose not to be. We look at stuff, we'll get irritated, laugh at it, move on.
I think that's where, we were picking up wings a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to the guy behind the counter, this young Mexican guy, and we were chatting about stuff, and he said that he listens to some conservative podcast, and I forgot what he even said. And I told him, I said, well, we've got one. And I said, but it's probably not, what you listen to, because we deal with some heavy subjects sometimes, but we laugh a lot. He goes, it really doesn't make any sense. He goes, that's intriguing. It's like, so I had to give him we need business cards. I had to write down stuff for him.
Well, I love our little logo because I tell people, well, how will I know when you see a sign that's kind of done in vector stuff that looks cartoonish slapped down in the lawn that says "Stay Off My Lawn," you'll know you hit the right one. There's a fence behind it, and there you go.
And the lawn is weed free, by the way, and that was a lot of work.
True Green did an amazing job.
Yes, they did.
Wait, I shouldn't be advertising for them.
No, definitely not. Send us a check, and we'll keep doing this.
We're not proud.
We're not proud at all. So, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was just peachy keen, wonderful. So what did I do this? Oh, I had the best prime rib. A lot of people go to get their steaks and stuff at these fancy chains or big atmosphere for a steakhouse. Well, you pay a lot for that atmosphere.
Exactly.
Yeah, we go across the border in Oregon. From where I'm at, it's a whopping 16 miles away to Bob's Steakhouse. We're not talking anything fancy. It's like an old diner up front, and then the bathrooms are between the eating area and the bar that's behind it. So,
well, at least there's a separation. That's good.
There's a separation. Yeah, it's got the old wooden floors. This building has been there a long time, but it's all nice, neat, and clean, and some of the best melt in your mouth prime rib. Oh, wow, it was good. All the fixins and everything to go with it. As they say, you got lots of grub there to wolf down.
They have peanuts on the floor and everything.
No, they don't have the peanuts. It's just there, and a good waitress that when she sees us come in, because we've gone there often enough. Oh, hi guys, good to see you. Thanks, Christina. She's And she's one of those. So can I do anything else for you, sweetheart? She's one of those. It's small town, and man, she hustles her rear end around, and everybody is taken care of. You're not wanting for nothing. She goes, well, I'm gonna go take care of a couple other things. When you see me go by, if you figured out what it was you want for an appetizer, just holler at me. She's not kidding. Hey, Christina, we got it figured out. Yeah, what do you want besides the mushrooms? I said we're gonna take the stuffed jalapenos. Okay, she didn't even come by the table. We're hollering across the. Wouldn't bring people in there yet.
She just waves
does
at
holler
you.
at her. She doesn't get PO'd, and it's taken care of, and you got it.
Good.
So it was just a wonderful dinner. Our friend, his wife's was her birthday, and that's where she chose to go out. The four of us we're supposed to go to a different place, but she wanted to go back to Bob's. She broke the rules, but it's okay. My belly is not sad about that at all. Neither's my taste buds.
We haven't had prime rib in a long time. That sounds really, really good.
I mean, a 16-ounce slab of pretty close to rare, because that's the way I like it, myself and my buddy, for $30. Are you kidding me? And I mean, you can't eat all the vegetables and salad and everything else that comes with it. Brought it home and had a second meal of it.
Well, what the heck was that?
No.
But yeah, we have a place down in Marietta called Cherokee Cattle Company. I think it's called something else now, but it's all part of like a 4-restaurant deal. There's a Marietta Fish Market, which is if you like fish, I mean, if you live in the Atlanta area, I mean, you've got to go to Marietta Fish Market. Now, chances are you're going to be waiting in line for about an hour to get in. But it was actually on. There was a TV show called Tanked, where they go and they put these big fish tanks in places, and that was one of the places, I think, in the first season where they showed them putting the tank in and everything. But the food is just outrageously good. I'm like you; it's like I don't mind spending, especially when it's excellent food and really good service. And pre-COVID, like you said, you used to get to know the waitresses and waiters, and you just don't. There's been so much turnover since all that happened. I just don't have that anymore, and I do kind of miss that. I miss seeing the same people over and over. But yeah.
We were figuring out the other day. We've got 3 places that we go to that when the waitress looks up, oh, hey, how you doing? Our little favorite Mexican restaurant that's literally just up the road from us out here in the country, and that when our waitress, who speaks much better English than when we first met her like 16 years ago. But she goes and gives the menu, what we ordered to the cooks in Spanish, because the cooks don't speak English. Yeah. And it is authentic and delicious. But we walk in, oh, hey guys, how you doing, Sylvia? We know their names.
Yeah. We were at Olive Garden about 20 years ago. And I remember the waitress saying something about where, the cooks don't speak English. And I thought, at the time, I go, you actually have Italian cooks? She goes, no, they're Mexican. Well, it's Olive Garden. I mean, for some reason that my head went to, is this really authentic? Then I remembered where I was at. It's Olive Garden, and no, it's not authentic.
Yeah, it ain't authentic Italian. It's not bad.
It's not bad. I get the same thing every time. It's chicken scampi. It's the only meal that's any good in there to me. They do have some kind of lobster appetizer. It's pretty good. It's lobster lasagna or something. I forgot what it was. It's these things that are stood up and they're deep fried. And you deep fry almost any. You could deep fry your foot and it would taste good. So,
well, you are in the South, and that is
exactly. You put pimento cheese on it, right?
Yeah,
we've chatted about that before.
Cheese whiz for our Southern friends. New pimento cheese spread.
Uncle Joe had a Veterans Day celebration, and of course, poor Uncle Joe. All he had to do was, I don't know if you saw the video, but all he had to do was go lay the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and kind of do his thing. And of course, he got lost. He didn't know where to go. He kept wandering back and forth, and it's just such an embarrassment. Plus, he had this to say.
It's Uncle Joe's Wisdom of the Week.
And no veteran is denied the honor they earn because they were discharged for being LGBTQ+.
I don't. Has that happened?
I think he missed a letter.
He missed a letter. Yeah, I mean he's missing a lot. That's the least of his thing.
That's the least of his letters that he misses. Okay.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, he messed it all up. Now,
Yeah, he says that, but what about all the people that got kicked out of the service because they didn't get the jab, the pokey pokey?
I was thinking the same thing. It's like, but
Like, what the hell? Screw them, huh?
it doesn't matter if you if you yeah, I'm not even going to go there, but yeah, I mean, they should have given all those people their jobs back. I think that was actually proposed in Congress. I'm assuming it didn't go through because I never heard any more about it, but it was proposed because the people who are least affected by COVID are the ones that they were forcing to get the jab. The young, healthy people who had to exercise every day. We ran every day when I was in. It's like, you shouldn't. Those are the people who are going to get the sniffles out of this. It's a chest cold. You don't even have to miss work. I mean, I don't know. None of this made any sense. It was a power grab. And I do believe.
Yeah. Oh, it irritated innumerable numbers of people were really PO'd about this. It's like, this is not the time to be political. No. Just stop, shut up, go where they're pointing for you to go, because I don't care what anybody says. He yelled at somebody the other day, yelled at folks when he was in my neighborhood, and they're going, okay, what neighborhood and what are you talking about?
It was in the middle of the sentence.
Nobody even had a clue what he was even saying.
He
didn't either.
He didn't. I think he wanted to inflect a little bit, and he sounded angry. And when he brings out that angry voice, it's like, you just sound like it. And anyway, you and I were talking through text message. I think it was yesterday, the day before. It's like, would you let him run a Starbucks or something? And it's like, I wouldn't let him run a remote control for my TV set. I mean, I just, I don't think he's capable of being a greeter at Walmart. I just don't. I don't know. And he's president of the United States, and he's the leader of the free world.
Well, he wasn't voted in. But at any rate,
oy vey.
Yes, back with more problems with the lovely government issues. So you saw the same thing I did on the homeschooling. Did you have something on that?
Yeah,
Did you have any more?
I've got something. I've got something before the homeschooling, real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, most of us thinking people here, and a lot of my friends in Europe, were at the very least leery of getting something like we were talking about, the shot, getting something that was categorized as experimental and only available here in the U.S. anyway, under emergency use authorization. You may wonder what that means. And of course, they're still using the same authorization for all the boosters, which I think I saw the other day. There's only 12% of people are looking to get the booster. It's very disappointing for them. But hey, they've cried wolf too many times and made everybody distrust them. Anyway,
it helps thin the herd.
Exactly. According to the FDA's website, what emergency use authorization is, it's a mechanism to facilitate the availability of and use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during public health emergencies. Of course, that's not the only thing that made us leery. And until a Freedom of Information Act request went through, the data surrounding the development of these vaccines, at first, it wasn't supposed to be released for, I think it was 75 years. Do you remember that?
Yep, that's correct, 75.
And the manufacturers of these vaccines were protected from being sued over any problems they might cause. And this was all precipitated from the U.S. government. Now, being leery, to me, is a smart move. I mean, especially when it comes to whatever the government tells you or whatever the local news tells you. But here is Dr. Peter McCullough, who is really high on my book as far as being an honest guy, and he just knows what he's talking about. He's a cardiologist, and he was talking about this whole thing on the fallout of the jab.
The spike protein is proven in 3,400 peer-reviewed manuscripts to cause 4 major domains of disease. One is cardiovascular disease, heart inflammation or myocarditis. Every regulatory agency agrees the vaccines cause myocarditis. I'm a cardiologist. Before COVID, for years, we've had guidelines in cardiology. When there is myocarditis, whether it's symptomatic or not, people cannot exert themselves in athletics. It will cause a cardiac arrest. And yet across Europe and across the United States, sports leagues were injecting young people who had no medical necessity, no clinical indication with these vaccines. And we have seen a montage of cardiac arrests in young individuals. I'm telling you as an expert cardiologist, these cardiac arrests are due to the COVID-19 vaccine until proven otherwise. They are. Other cardiovascular diseases caused by the vaccine proven. Acceleration of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease and heart attacks or cardiovascular arrest. Posterior orthostatic tachycardia syndrome or POTS, or people passing out due to low blood pressure. You have seen montages of people in the media, one after another, passing out like you've never seen before. It is the vaccine until proven otherwise.
See, he's not afraid to call him out. I'm just surprised he hasn't been arrested or found something wrong. We'll actually talk about taking off the government later and how that can cause fallout in your own life. But again, young, healthy people, they've got no business being afraid of the sniffles.
No, they're hiding all the something pushing over 1,000 in because soccer, or as they call it, football, not American football, all across the world is such a big sport. And even these pro soccer players that are in their 20s, just healthy as a horse, because you do that much running and
That's
stuff.
a lot of running, yeah.
You're not in crap shape.
Right.
And they just out there on the field and just drop dead.
Yep.
Right in the middle of a hockey. Right.
Well, it's hockey on grass. It's basically the same thing.
Hard on the skates. In the middle of a soccer match. It's like, they've never had this kind of death. No. There is an odd thing that happens from time to time, but I'm telling you, nothing like these cardiologists, their offices are they can't deal with all the patients. It's exploded, and it's only exploded for one reason.
Mm-hmm. And people wonder, and the government wonders why people don't trust what the government says anymore. It's like, man,
I ain't doing it, and I didn't, and I ain't gonna.
Yep. I'm nope. Just say no. Don't. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the homeschooling statistics that we came across this week. And we're going to talk about the sanctuary city, especially New York and Chicago, and how the tides seem to be turning a little bit there. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
I'm Charmaine Davies, and every week my guilty pleasure is tuning in to the podcast Stay Off My Lawn. It's funny, it's informative, and the guys that present it are just fabulous. So make sure you tune in every week to Stay Off My Lawn and make it your guilty pleasure too.
Do you know how much salt is in your bowl, soup fans? Remember, an adult's maximum daily salt intake is 6 grams, and a kid's even less. So compare the labels on different soups and choose the ones lower in salt, or perhaps try making your own. Go to eatwell.gov.uk. Salt. Is your food full of it?
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2, and we're going to, as I promised, there's an interesting statistic since the 1970s. On average, there were 13,000 households homeschooling. Those are the kids that you beat up at summer camp, I guess.
Well, the wife and I were talking about that. That's in the 70s. That's when we finished our high school and all that kind of stuff. And the kids who were being homeschooled then were they were the odd ducks.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're schooled at home. How come you don't go to school with everybody else?
Exactly.
I mean, when you are only talking across the whole U.S., 13,000. So when you're in a smaller community of 25, 30,000 people and there's 1 or 2 kids that are homeschooled, you happen to know, you go, what the hell's wrong with them?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
It was an anomaly that wasn't really needed. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
Then it started to change. What's next?
The 80s, it went up to 200,000. That's a huge jump. I mean,
that's a big one. That was when my girls were in school.
Yeah. And Chris was born in 1990, and in the 90s, it had gone up to 850,000 people. Of course, that didn't stop there. In the 2000s, it went up to 1.5 million. 2010s, it only went up to 1.7 million. So it was a very small jump comparatively. And then since then, the 2020s, and we were only not even halfway through the 2020s, we're up over 5 million households that are doing homeschooling.
And still growing.
Yep.
And
So-
the reason for that
I was
is
going to say, you may ask yourself why.
this stuff on closing the schools down backfired on the libs.
Absolutely.
Because they went, wait a minute, they're teaching you that? You're being, no. And also the raise in childcare costs, because they're going to get minimum wage now of $15. Well, you can't afford to send your kid there. You're paying almost as much. I had an individual that told me they went to homeschooling their child because it was going to impact their budget by something around $200 a month. And they went, why do I want to work 40 hours a week every week for a lousy $200 that we can do without a few things? It's no big deal. And a lot of parents have started doing that. They're going back to raising their kids at home like they used to do. And it's because it's not costing anymore. They found out, well, hey, I can do this homeschooling. And there are so many programs online where they've got a curriculum for you and everything. All you have to do is facilitate and you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't even have to be, back in the 80s or 70s, you had to be smart in order to teach your kids at home, because there were no books for homeschooling. You had to go, and not that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah, not that I know of either.
But like you said, this COVID has kind of shined a spotlight on what these teachers are trying to indoctrinate kids in school too. We're asking a third grader what your pronoun is, and like going, are you kidding me? Pronouns used to be taught it was a form of speech. It was not a form of how you identify. So I think that and it does seem like if you watch the news or you watch any of the media or whatever, it seems like we are such a minority, those of us conservative people that still have values, old-fashioned values. But I think there's more of us than we realize. Here in the South, there's lots of us, and it's obvious. But I think if you go out to California, there are still some hardcore conservative people that I know in California that don't like what's going on out there any more than any of us watching it from where we live. So
yeah, it's we're kind of like you. It's a conservative area on the thing, and all the Dems moving in from California say, oh no, we're conservative. No, they're not. Your California conservative is not conservative. You're essentially a rhino, which kind of is, we saw how that went for McCarthy.
Yeah. Well, it's like that friend of ours we have, or the ex-friend of ours up in Seattle, called himself a conservative, and man, he was anything but. Anything but.
Was just a raging liberal.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
It's like,
maybe for Seattle he was conservative, but that ain't a conservative.
But that
wasn't even rhino.
He liked throwing that word conservative out there, and then he got all mad at me over something, and it's like going, dude, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
This is basic stuff. I mean, anyway, so if you've got children, and my daughter-in-law is actually talking about this too, that she's planning on teaching the twins at home, homeschooling them. There's all kinds of programs, like you said, and they're affordable, and they're not teaching them all kinds of crap that you don't believe in. So
yep. Yeah, you can find all kinds of programs out there, from ultra religious speaking. Oh, that was the other thing I saw in Catholic schools back in the day, 70s, whatever. There was about 1.2%. It was just a minimal that weren't Catholic going to private Catholic schools.
Yeah.
It's now 22%.
Oh my.
That are not Catholic but are still enrolling in Catholic private schools.
Why did they do that? I'm curious.
Because it's conservative enough and will teach their children the right way without all this other garbage that's being taught to them.
I gotcha.
But that number just exploded. I went, holy crap-a-nolies.
Seems like they would have an interview process and everything for any kind of Christian school, you would think, but Catholics do their own thing.
I don't think you just waltz in. There's too many people trying to get into them now. So it's,
Private schools have gone up quite a bit. And especially a lot of these political pundits in Washington, D.C. that are talking about, keep your kids home during COVID. They had their kids enrolled in private schools and were going without masks and the whole thing. It's like they were skirting the whole rules that they were putting in place for the rest of us because they had money. So another reason why to not trust the government if you can possibly get away with it. Anyway, speaking of not trusting the government, the illegal immigrants numbers keep going up. They keep crossing, and a lot of places are feeling the pain.
Why would that be? I don't get it.
You swing the door open and you go, come on in, we got money. And, I don't know.
I think it's called an invasion, but I don't know. Could just be me.
When it comes up towards 10 million people cumulatively, I'm just guessing. I'm spitballing here. Anyway, sanctuary cities like New York and Chicago are having a little bit of trouble with all that. Here's a bit of how it went at a city council meeting in Chicago last week, as reported by Fox 32 in that city.
We're spending a lot of money. We're spending a lot of money every single day. I think we're up to 40 million a month now, ladies and gentlemen. We're up to 40 million a month. And to shut people out from having a voice is not what this city's foundation was built on.
That was Alderman, let me see here, Anthony Beale. I think he was from one of the wards there. But anyway, that was the financial aspect of it. And you could hear the background. People were upset. People were in the building. It was like there was a lot of protesters. Also, they wanted to shut down some of the protesters too there at the city council meeting. They wanted to keep a lot of those people out. They wanted to keep their voices squelched, especially since there were cameras there. Yada, yada, yada. So anyway, this is...
we can't have evidence of anything taking place. Heavens forbid, that shouldn't be allowed.
Well, they want Chicago to say that we're above all that, and we are just like New York said at one point, that we're welcoming. We love these people. We want them here. Another alderman, Anthony Napolitano, addressed the situation where the city council leaders, like I said, didn't want to talk about anything or even listen to what the citizens have to say. And here's him.
This is what this question is causing right now. If we are a body of city council members that are elected to represent our residents and asking them a simple question because they are dying to be heard, and we're denying that, then we voided council. We are not representatives of our neighborhoods and our communities anymore. We're representatives of just this building. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be answering to them. We're supposed to be answering to our neighborhoods.
Well, there you go. He's spot on. I mean,
yes, good for him, and he didn't disappoint me. Someone whose last name was DePalaton. Hey, you guys, you're not coming this way. This is what we're supposed to be doing, okay?
Come on in, you bunch of. I love your Mexican restaurants. I mean, he was fantastic. So
good for him, though. It's like in a Chicago. Serious? He can't be conservative, but he's actually saying what their jobs are supposed to be.
Well, the other guy, I'm sure, isn't conservative either. And of course, on the news clip that I pulled that off of, it didn't say. But
of course it doesn't.
I can't imagine in Chicago that there's any Republican city council people. But like the other guy said, it's like the financially. It's destroying them. And just like Eric Adams had criticized the Biden administration about, it's their fault. I lay this at their feet, I think is how he put it, that this whole invasion, the reason all these immigrants are moving to these sanctuary cities is his fault. He left the gate open. But unfortunately,
literally, they welded them open in Arizona.
That's true. And supposedly now they do that during monsoon season, but it's still like that as far as I understand. Even welding, which I thought was interesting. I heard that as a I'm trying to remember who said that, but it was credible that they actually weld those gates open because of monsoons and the flooding. It could be really
Well,
bad.
they're supposed to be latched open. They have latches on them, but they welded them open so you couldn't close them when it wasn't the monsoon season.
Isn't
They
that-
prevented you from doing that to let them trot across, like that fake governor that they have that should not be governor.
I can't think of her name off the top of my head. But anyway,
Katie Hobbs?
Katie Hobbs, that's who. She's terrible.
She's an embarrassment for Arizona.
Absolutely.
She didn't get voted in no more than a man in the moon.
No. Carrie Lake, I'm sure, got probably double the amount of votes that actually got counted for her. By the way, if you hear noise in my background, I've lived in this neighborhood for 22 years and they have never resurfaced the roads, and they're doing it this morning. So, woohoo!
So far, I haven't noticed it, but then I don't listen to you anyway. So.
Well, there you go. Maybe other people can take that note and move forward. One thing I think they need to be careful, these Chicago aldermen speaking out on this, because remember, New York City Mayor, like I said, Eric Adams has been a harsh critic of the Biden administration over this whole migrant crisis. And the other day, I don't know if you saw this or not, the FBI stopped him and removed his personal phone and iPad from his vehicle over a probe into his campaign, accepting money illegally from the Turkish government in his 2021 campaign. All of a sudden, you're under investigation.
Why is the Turkish government giving campaign money to a New York mayor?
I don't know. That's a very, very good question. I have no idea. But all I know is that
he's rotten in Denmark. But then if you've been to New York of late, there's a lot of rotten things in New York.
He spoke ill of the Biden administration, and of course now he's going to get investigated. It doesn't matter if you got a D next to your name or not. So you gotta be careful. Gotta be careful. Anyway, we're up against a break, so let's go ahead and do that, because we come back, we got a lot of sound bites from the Republican debate. They were very, very good. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
The old guys return with more Stay Off My Lawn in just a minute. God help us.
Can I take your order?
I can't see you anymore.
Wow, this is really sudden. Why?
Well, your burgers are horrible for my health and energy. Your sodas are eating my teeth enamel. And supersizing, no one should put away that many fries at one meal.
Hey, I can change. I can add some fruit to my menu and a nice, thick syrupy sauce.
No.
Help your kids break off their fast food relationships.
Hey, have some fries and let's talk about it.
See ya.
Sponsored by the Stay Off My Lawn radio show and podcast. Hi, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 3. We're past halftime.
Almost breakfast time for me. Sorry.
Well, some of the best TV for sound bites happened last week, and I completely missed it. And I think Richard did too. So, but the internet had filled up with these sound bites afterwards, so it's almost like being there. Because the third Republican debate was aired and moderated by the bastion of free speech, NBC. I can't even say it with a straight face. NBC. You might want to question.
They're so fair and honest.
Exactly. Why would the Republican National Committee, Ronna McDaniel herself, who is, I think she's Mitt Romney's niece. Is that right? She's related to Romney somehow.
There's a big,
Yeah. So anyway,
an R after a name that has another R followed
exactly with an HINO. Exactly.
Not even the H. They don't even do that. It's just
that's
RINO.
true. There's no H.
Yeah,
it's Republican in name only.
I don't think she has a foreign horn or a horn coming out of the middle of her.
A foreign horn would be even worse. I mean, if it didn't speak your language. Why? So why would they ask them to do the debate? Why would they ask NBC to do the debate? It's easy for me to say. So Vivek had the same question, and here it is.
Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Christian Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Christian, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Ross.
Sorry. This is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to
That's
Governor Chris.
You can almost feel Lester Holt's blood pressure going up. He always came across as a condescending jerk, if you ask me, because you could just hear it in his voice. It's like, Mr. Ramaswamy,
Mr.
your
Ramaswamy,
time is up.
yeah, your time is up. He didn't say it. Your time is up. Your time is up. All right, let's go to this other fat liar over here on this end of the stage.
Exactly.
He's at least closer to us.
And it probably was because it was Chris Christie. Is very accurate description of the fat liar. But he always came across bad. I guess most of them do, though, when especially when they're trying to herd the cats of the Republican debates. But I did find something. Here's Lester Holt trying to fact check Senator Tim Scott, and again, he kind of seems to have this attitude that I'm the smartest guy in the room at any given time. I don't know. That's just where the feeling I get from him. Anyway, Tim Scott was not having it. Here it is.
We can reduce the price of energy. We can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded. The Made in America strategy creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper that day. I'm talking about you become president. What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives our prices down because we know there's going to be a greater surplus. When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position. And as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as president of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective. Proverbs 22:7 reminds us that the borrower is slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China. By having an energy economy, we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis.
Of course, he likes to interrupt. Lester does, but I like that he had a plan. I don't think I've heard that from too many of the others. Of course,
Well, it wasn't just BS. It's like, we have a problem and we need to do this. And how are you going to do that? Oh, no, he had step by step on how that would work. And Lester, I don't think appreciated that because Lester just got slapped down.
He sure did.
Because Lester was trying to, I don't see how this is going to help. Oh, wait, you have a plan. Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes me look stupid. Moving on.
Again, he has that I'm the smartest guy in the room syndrome thing going. And I think that didn't, it didn't work out at that point. Of course, I hate that Tim Scott has suspended his campaign. He said he's not interested in vice president.
There was somebody else that just did too, and I don't know who it was. But none of them, how many of them were in double digits? Approval rating. There was only like 2 or 3 in double digits.
3. Yeah.
And only in the 20s at that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I like Tim Scott. I think and he even said this is not his time. I like Vivek. I don't think that this is his time. But there's some. I like these debates because it does bring a lot of this stuff to the surface, and it gets people talking about things that they wouldn't have normally talked about. Now, Vivek talked about Kristen Welker, who was the NBC reporter that was one of the debate questioners.
Oh, she is liberal with a capital
she
L.
is. She reported on that fake dossier Russian hoax very often a couple of years ago, and our friends at Sky News Australia, well, they took notice. And, because our media would never do that sort of thing, put these clips together. But so they did. So it's very fantastic. Very fantastic. This is Sky News Australia and their montage.
President and his legal team are defiant as the Russia investigation intensifies. Still, it's creating yet another Russia-related flap for this administration. What you are seeing is President Trump increasingly embattled because of the Russia investigation and increasingly lashing out. New signs the Russia probe is reaching into new places. The Washington Post reporting special counsel Robert Mueller is investigating. I'm Kristen Welker at the White House, where President Trump gave his most direct denial yet. Have you ever worked for Russia? Yes,
I never worked for Russia. And you know that answer better than anybody. I never worked for Russia. Not only did I never work for Russia, I think it's a disgrace that you even asked that question, because it's a whole big fat hoax.
That after he didn't directly deny he was a Russian agent on Fox News.
And of course, we've all figured it out.
I don't know about you, but that sounded like a giant denial to me.
That's what it sounded like to me. But of course, it turned out to be not true anyway. So, I mean, they don't care about the truth. It's all about political enemies. I really believe that's what a lot of it is. And it seems like the 5 people on stage pretty well after all the clips and transcripts I've kind of read. Vivek had some of the best moments, though, and he didn't just go after the media. There were shots fired at Nikki Haley, too.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw this.
You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right, Mr.
In which case, we've got 2 of them on stage
Mr.
tonight.
Ramaswamy, thank you.
I don't know if you heard
you couldn't hear. She actually said they're not 3, they're 5.
Oh, yeah. I saw
well,
that.
you got hooker heels on. Well, nobody knew. Tried to make herself taller.
I'll be honest. I did not do any research on Nikki Haley. I did not know she became a government contractor, and I didn't know that she's now a multimillionaire after all that stuff. So.
No, I've never been a big fan. She is a rhino with a capital R. So yeah, no, I just the way she handled herself and what she did when she was in the United Nations was disgraceful, and I have no use for it.
Now, when she was governor of South Carolina, just because I'm so close, we share a border, we knew a lot about her policies and everything in South Carolina, which she had done some great things. Because if you remember, I'm trying to remember what year it was, but they said that, people didn't have an ID or a way to get back and forth to the polls. And they said that was bad on certain segments of society. And so what she had put out, I think it was, is that if you need an ID, we will, and you don't have transportation, the government, the state government will come pick you up, take you over, allow you to get an ID, this free ID that they have. You don't need a driver's license. You can get a state-backed ID, and we'll take you back home. Not only that, we'll help you get back and forth to the polls, too. They said less than 1% of the people actually called. I forgot what the number was. It was a very, very small number compared to the population of South Carolina.
Right.
It was like, 250 people out of the 8 million people that live there or whatever. It's like there was just nobody. So, I mean, she quashed that argument right from the get-go, and I appreciated that. I thought that was pretty good. And plus, those 250 people, they did get I think everybody ought to have a chance to vote. That's great. But I mean, if that's going to be a tactic to attack your opponent, then she took it off the table. I thought that was pretty good. And of course,
she's just done so many other things that were okay.
Yeah,
you've done this good, and then those balance of the law scales, if you were, the balance of justice. One side is hanging real low at the moment. It's got a lot more stuff in that little plate than the other side does.
That's right.
And there's just been too many things. I just don't have any use for.
No, I'm with you. She had some good moments in the first debate. My wife really liked her, and I tried to explain to her some of the other things that she's done. And anyway, if you heard Vivek there at the end, there was a little passive aggressive shot at Ron DeSantis. He said, we have two of them on stage right now because remember the whole thing that Ron DeSantis wears lifts. I don't know. He says he's 5'11". I've never seen him in person. I mean, why is that a big thing? I'm not sure why height matters, but
okay. I am not a giant. Trust me. I might come up to your shoulder, maybe. I'm a whopping 5'5". I used to be 5'8". Funny how 30 years of in and out of a route truck packing stuff jams things together and you get smaller.
You've been beat down, boy. You got beat down.
Well, smaller and rounder.
Oh man! Well, the covering for Uncle Joe continues with our friend Jen Psaki. They called her Psaki Bomb on one radio show I used to listen to. And
is that right? Yes, yeah. Peppermint Patty was one that I heard quite a bit.
I like that too. She's really, when she smiles, she's a very pretty woman. I'm surprised that she hasn't kind of gone a different route because most of the pretty women end up at Fox. But I mean, what do I know? Or even on headline news. Yeah,
I never liked the slam toward Peppermint Patty though.
Nah.
I mean, she didn't deserve that.
No,
so it's like, hey, she's a good kid who's out just playing ball with Chuck. I mean.
Yeah, Chuck. That's right. I forgot she called him Chuck. So anyway, she has turned into gone from press secretary to an MSNBC talking head, which has worked out pretty well for her.
And yet,
the
hand-wringing and cocktail party speculation about an alternative to Joe Biden is continuing, will continue. Guess what? Joe Biden isn't perfect. No candidate is, by the way. But we have to understand what the alternative is here. If elected to a second term, Donald Trump would prosecute anyone he deems an enemy, unleash troops on protesters, and essentially unravel the rule of law as we know it. And this time, he plans to line his administration with people who will actually help him do it. But sure, Joe Biden is 3 years older and occasionally trips over things. Look, there's a lot to be concerned about right now when it comes to a second Trump term. The speeches are getting much more disturbing and much more unhinged, and we should all hear it that way.
Now, I think it's really funny that she describes what Trump may do if he gets a second term.
He's going to do this. He's never said he was going to do this. No. He never said he would be doing any of those things. And rule of law, the Dems dare breathe the words rule of law when all of these Democratic cities are just under siege of all these people that have burned down you don't want to go to downtown Portland, downtown Seattle, downtown LA, downtown Chicago, downtown
San Francisco.
DC. Yeah. I mean, they're even trying to steal government cars that are protecting members of the Biden.
That's right. His granddaughter got, there was
she wasn't there. The car was, they'd taken her into the school or whatever the hell it was, but it's like, and then you got Secret Service shooting at him. Nobody was hit. What the hell?
That's terrible.
And it's a distraction. What? The blanks can't kill anybody? I don't think
they can, unless they're right up next to you, or unless you're Alex Baldwin. But yeah, there's I know I shouldn't have said that. But isn't that not exactly what she's claiming that Trump will do? Isn't it exactly what Uncle Joe is doing? I mean, 91 counts, 4 indictments in 4 different jurisdictions, all pushed by the Federal Department of Justice. I mean, when you put your political prisoners in, she's saying that's what he's done. He's going to do.
They accuse their opponents of doing what they're doing.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
I mean, if you want to get down to it, people just, unfortunately, we look at news way too damn much. But
yes, we do.
It's like, give me a break. It's like, what? Just like, what was it? Oh, have you seen Uncle Joe's recent crap that he put out there on Veterans Day, accusing Trump of dissing our troops? And why would he join the army? He's too smart to join Where did these sound bites come from? Because I have never seen Trump do anything but be respectful of. Joe gets off the helicopter when they're at the White House and just walks right. The guy kind of waves at him like it's a semi-salute. Yeah. Trump would stop, salute. The wind one time or the rotor, whatever, blew the guy's cap off. He went and got it, picked it up, and gave it to him. Yep. You know, I'm sorry. That's respecting the service people who are protecting you and taking care of. Joe could give a rat's ass.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, but you know, all those things don't matter because they push all that stuff aside in the mainstream media. And this one guy I listened to, he calls him Normie Norm, and Normie Norm listens just enough, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they listen just enough to get a little bit of soundbite here and there, but you know, they're too busy. They've got football to watch. They've got things to do. And so, I mean, Normie Norm doesn't understand all this. And this is why we're trying to bring this to the surface. Anyway.
Yes. I went ranting and raving. I was on a roll and we went way over time.
It happens. When we come back, we're going to, did you know Roseanne Barr had a podcast? Well, I did not know that. And we're not going to promote it, but we do have a soundbite from there. So hang in there. We will be right back.
Hey, this is Kendra Rains, and I love these two old guys. That's why I listen to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast. And you should too.
Americans for the Arts is shining a light on how creative expression and opportunities can shape communities and foster leadership and confidence. And it is our mission to gather support and resources for those individuals waiting behind the curtain for their chance to shine. Find out how your business can play a part at americansforthearts.org.
Welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 4. It's almost over, folks. It's going to be okay.
Yay! My stomach is going to be so happy.
And then we're going to be off until almost the end of November. We're taking next week off, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But anyway, did you know Roseanne Barr had a podcast? I did not know this.
I was not familiar with it, but I thought it doesn't surprise me. No. And people go, what? She's conservative? Oh, boy, is she.
Everybody's got a podcast anymore. I mean, we're us old people and microphones, we've got them too.
That's right.
Anyway, she interviewed Dinesh D'Souza, who is one of my favorite people because he's unafraid. And he breaks down what we're seeing right now, which is a little disturbing.
When you look at police states around the world, let's take North Korea right now, China, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and the old Soviet Union. And you ask, well, what do those places all have in common? What are the 5 or 6 things that they all have? Well, they have mass surveillance of citizens. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They have widespread censorship. Mm-hmm. They have ideological indoctrination and propaganda in the schools and in the media. Mm-hmm. They are one-party states where they try to shut down opposition and lock up the leaders of the opposition party. Mm-hmm. They undermine religious liberty. They have political prisoners. So just take that list and go down the checklist and see which of those things do you now see in America? All of them. To some degree or another, they're all here. Yeah. And that is enough to sound the alarm and say that this is not an idle fear.
Yeah. It's scary when he breaks it down like that. It's exactly what we're seeing.
It's all what's going on. They've just been chipping away with a little chisel and a big ass hammer, whapping away at it, and our liberties and stuff just keep. But you can't do that anymore because we're here to protect. You can't do that either because wait a minute, there's just too many of these. We're taking that away and taking. Stop. That's enough. You've taken enough away. Not going there.
Well, unfortunately, there's so many people that still trust the government and what they have to say about things. And of course, every time there's a mass shooting, of course, you know that they're going to trot out all the anti-Second Amendment people and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, my 2 guns have never shot a soul. And so it's not the gun, unfortunately. It's normally these crazy people. They just leaked some of these, that manifesto from the Nashville shooter. And that's pretty disturbing, some of that stuff we can't even say on the air.
And they don't want you to know about it because it goes against their, that's not what they were. Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
You've been indoctrinating people to hate whites, and that's essentially what the to put it in a generalized manner from the stuff that I've read.
Sure.
It's all it was from the indoctrination in schools.
Yep.
Sorry, that's just exactly what it was.
And you would think that she wasn't white, but this girl is white, and she was talking about people like they weren't even her own race. It was weird. And the media is not covering it, but in Las Vegas recently, there was a killing of a boy that stood up for his friend. His friend got robbed. He stood up for him, and they beat him to death. 15 kids beat him to death. It was a white kid, and they were all black kids. And I mean, if it was the opposite. And there's a guy on Instagram named Benny Sings. Of course, black people can say this a whole lot easier than I can. But he said, if that was the opposite, if there was 15 white kids beaten to death a black kid, everything in this country would be burned down. And I get it. I totally get it, because that would be awful. This is equally awful, but it's not being reported on because it's not politically expedient. And I don't have any other reason why they would do that. So anyway, you may be asking what Dinesh just explained. How did we get here so fast? Well, it wasn't really all that fast after all. It just kind of seems like it. There's a guy, Yuri Besmenov, and we've actually played this in the past. It was many months ago, but he's an ex-KGB agent who defected to Canada in 1970, and he gave an interview in 1984, and he had said some astounding things, making a lot of sense when you look at it, especially in 2023, and how things have changed over the last few decades. Now I have to warn you, this is over 6 minutes long, but it's fascinating, so listen carefully.
Mr. Besmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, Even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking with every second.
He knows his history. Of course, he was living in that history at that point, but the leftists will eat themselves, apparently, by a stronger leftist. That's kind of the way I got it.
What's happening. And anybody who thinks Obama's running the country is full of it. All you got to do is find old Biden Obama.
Yeah.
Whatever his name. Yeah. And they've even slipped up at the podium. Both Peppermint Patty and KJB,
yes, they have.
caller, have said President Obama. That's not who's in charge. Oh, whoops! That's who they had
He's on speakerphone quite a bit, I think, and that's they're used to
yeah.
that. Yeah. So you just have to wonder. You know, this has been going on. Obviously, he said 25 years, and that was 84. My math and calls that 1960. That's a long time for all this to kind of get implemented. So it didn't really happen as quickly as we were thinking, because I think part of it was I wasn't paying attention. Everything kind of had slowly drifted to this way, and everybody got indoctrinated. So I don't know, man.
Yep. It just kind of, and all these stupid kids that are saying, oh, let's, Palestine. If they went over and did any kind of marching, and most of them are gays and stuff that are all supporting Palestine, I'm sorry, but you would be shot
beheaded.
or beheaded or whatever the case might be, because they don't tolerate your kind. So if you think this is so wonderful, let's go put you over there and let me know how it works out for you.
Yeah. Read the Quran if you don't believe us. I mean, that's just the way it is in just about every Arab country. So, I mean, unfortunately, if people aren't willing to learn, there's not much we can do. But I do think that you do have to have an open mind and at least consider that this is possibly what's happening.
Well, what we just had the soundbite from Peppermint Patty from Psaki is exactly what he's talking about. She was saying, well, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, it didn't happen in the last time. You mean the best, most prosperous time in American history in 4 years? How quickly? Because we were being run by a businessman and not a damn politician, and that's why they don't like him. He don't play the games.
I love it when people call him a racist or he's this. Now he's a lot of things. But I don't think racist is one of them. But normally when people get called on the carpet like that, they've got nothing to say. Well, he just is. Well, yeah, well, that's propaganda. I mean,
that's just exactly what it is. I can't tell you how many times I've had to wake up and tell the wife, I had another dream. These TV stations and that are where all their satellite stuff is. We're blown up in a dream again. It's like, I don't know why I keep having that, but at any rate.
I read a story the other day about solar flares and how that can knock out internet all over the place. And so
they're preparing us for the next thing.
Who knows? Yeah. And they even admitted to that the next, I think it was another Peter McCullough soundbite that I didn't use today, but he was talking about that they've already planning for the next big crisis, the next big virus.
Gotta have a crisis. Gotta have something so they can say, well, we have an emergency, so we can do these rules.
It's a power grab at that point. Yeah.
And people saw what happened in the COVID thing. I mean, it's not going to go over again.
I would hope not. I would hope people have woken up and not allow that to happen.
I just waked up.
I'm very tired today, so there you go. But we do need a palate cleanser, and Paul Harvey.
Oh Lord, yes.
And since we're skipping next week, as far as a live show, we're gonna have some things we're gonna put together. Tell you about it after the Paul Harvey thing, but he talks about the origins of Thanksgiving as we know it. It's a little bit different than you might think.
Now, the rest of the story. In the medieval Dutch town of Leiden in the early 17th century, the immigrants were getting restless. There was a significant immigrant population, even back then. You see, the people of Leiden had a motto in those days, a slogan not unlike our own. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, and so on. Their saying was, quote, Leiden refuses no honest people free entry, period. It was not quite as catchy as the generous entreaty inscribed on the pedestal of Lady Liberty, but it was effective, so effective that within months of its first utterance, 30% of the town of Leiden was foreign-born and foreign-speaking. But eventually, as I say, those immigrants grew restless. And the issue was tolerance, for the immigrants had come to Leiden in the first place, fleeing intolerance elsewhere in the world. In other words, these were the unwanted, the unappreciated, even the persecuted from other shores, seeking a society which would welcome them as they were, instead of insisting on conformity to local custom. But after only a little more than a decade in warm, welcoming, tolerant Leiden, the tolerated immigrants lost their own tolerance for their new home. Our children are becoming too assimilated, too Dutch, the ungrateful immigrants began complaining. Or, we aren't getting enough jobs, they complained. And predictably, when the Dutch natives of Leiden began hearing that sort of thing, they began rethinking their original policy of open doors and open arms. No, the Dutch refused to deport their malcontents, but their individual unofficial attitudes became less hospitable. And you can see where this is going. Many of the immigrants who only a half-generation before had flocked to Leiden so gladly and so gratefully packed up and moved out to the New World. So, after the so-called pilgrims wore out their welcome in Leiden, Holland in 1620, a handful of them got into a shaky little boat, sailed across the sea to Plymouth Rock, but there was a stowaway aboard the Mayflower, and that unseen passenger was the culture of Leiden itself. For despite their relentless struggle for originality, the Pilgrims brought with them to their new home in North America a collage of customs which Americans recognize and revere to this day. The civil registration of marriages, for example, which initiated the then unique concept of separation of church and state. Almost 2 centuries later, John Quincy Adams would cite the Mayflower Compact as the foundation for the United States Constitution. But did he know that the United Colonies, which the Pilgrims established in New England in 1643, the consolidation of semi-independent jurisdictions into one nation, that was based on a form of federal government that they had first observed in the Netherlands, the United Provinces. And one thing more, back in Leiden, there was a particular celebration. It was a day commemorating the end of the Spanish siege against the city in 1574. It was sort of like our 4th of July. But the focus of those Dutch festivities, instead of fireworks, was gratitude. Thanksgiving Day, it was called. Yes, I do mean to say that when you're giving thanks today, save some for the people of 17th century Leiden, whose own immigrants emigrated to our distant rocky shore, where eventually, however arduously, freedom was born. Now you know the rest of the...
And it cut off. I couldn't get the rest of it. But yeah, it's isn't that great? I've never heard that story before. So, oh, you're on mute, Richard.
I knew that I didn't want to cough in the middle of his thing. That the immigrants who came over to America, the Pilgrims, did not come directly from England. I was aware that they did go to Holland, where the Dutch were and all that. Now, did I remember the name of the town? No, but that much of the history I was familiar with, and that when they came over the first year, they tried to do a commune style deal where everybody would work together, and people were going, well, they're working harder they're not doing anything, but they get the same as me. Well, I'm not going to work very hard either. Pretty much nobody, then it just fell apart. They damn near a lot of people did die of starvation. They didn't have anything. So then the governor, I guess, if you will, of the community said, all right, you get this piece of land over here. You get this is yours. You make what you want. It's all yours. And if you want to share with the others, then we can swap and trade or whatever you want to do. And it was so bountiful. There you go. Thanksgiving. And that's what they were thankful for. Yeah. So how's that for a little history lesson?
I like that. And who knew you knew anything? That's great.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising when a file drawer opens. Even I don't know what's going on.
Like we mentioned earlier that we're not going to be here next week. We are putting together, we reached out to some friends of ours and what they're thankful for, former guests and friends of the show. And we asked them to put together a little bit of what they're thankful for. And we're going to make a montage of that, including Richard and I. And Richard actually has a story about his thrice baked turkey. So that's going to be really good. It's probably not going to be quite as long as this week's. We went way over this week.
Yeah. I'm going to say we're going to split the difference, and next week's could be a lot shorter.
Yeah, it might only be a half an hour, but it's special. Take your time with Thanksgiving and with your family, and enjoy your family, and that's what we're going to do. And one actual little tip for Thanksgiving, that if you want to save money for Christmas, bring up politics and say that anybody who doesn't agree with you is stupid, and you will probably not have to buy any Christmas gifts, and that's a freebie from the Tarnow household. And that's
trying to help your budgets out there, right, folks. That's all we're doing.
I've been rolling like that for a long time. We're here for you.
That's right.
Well, anyway, we hope you're somewhat informed, and had fun like we did. And even though I can't speak this morning, don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And just simplify, or if you want to tell somebody else about it, just go to our website at stayoffmylawn.us for all our past and present episodes.
And there's a lot of clickable links, and that's kind of fun too.
Yes, that makes it a lot easier to go, what are they talking about? And some of that you can check on further.
Exactly. You can stop and go, what did he say? And then you're like, oh, I didn't need to hear that again. Anyway, so enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we will see you in 2 weeks, folks.
Thanks for being with us, people. We appreciate it. Toodles. Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Well, mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.